the forest that feeds. I need to tell you this before I forget how to speak. Before the memories reshape themselves into something I can live with. Before my mind does what minds do best, lie to protect itself. 3 days ago, I went into the forest. What came back isn't entirely me anymore. But let me start where it actually begins. Not on the day I went in, but 2 weeks before when I found the photographs. They were tucked inside a decomposing jacket I discovered while riding past the forest edge. The jacket was hanging from a branch at eye level, positioned too deliberately to be accidental. Like someone wanted it found. Inside the pocket, wrapped in plastic to protect them from rot. 7 photographs. Each one showed the same thing, the interior of the forest I'd been planning to visit. The same grove where I'd found honey mushrooms before. But in each photo, if you looked carefully at the shadows between the trees, you could see shapes. Human-shaped, standing perfectly still, watching whoever took the picture. In the final photograph, the shapes were closer, much closer, and the camera angle was tilted like whoever held it was running. I should have stopped then. Should have burned those photographs and stayed away. I didn't, because the thing about fear is that it's also magnetic. It pulls you toward the very thing you should flee. And I kept thinking about those mushrooms, golden, perfect, growing in clusters so thick you could fill a bag in minutes. Growing where something fed the soil. Growing where death composted into life. So today I went back. The forest started wrong. That's the first thing you need to understand. I've ridden this path dozens of times. But today the trees were different. Not in any way I could articulate, same species, same positions, but different in the way they felt. Like they'd been replaced overnight with perfect copies that didn't quite understand how real trees should stand. The shadows fell at angles that didn't match the sun. The silence wasn't the absence of sound, but the presence of held breath. My motorcycle sounded obscene in that quiet. Each rev of the engine felt like screaming in a library, like breaking an unspoken rule. And with every meter I traveled deeper, the temperature dropped. Not gradually, in waves. I'd pass through pockets of cold so intense my breath misted, then back into normal air, then cold again. Like riding through the exhalations of something massive sleeping just off the path. The thoughts came then. You know the ones, those invasive flashes of disaster that ambush you while riding. Hit that rock. Lose control. Crash. Bleed out alone. But these were different. More detailed. More specific. I could see myself lying in the underbrush. Leg bent wrong. Bone-piercing skin. Could see the blood pooling black in the dead leaves. Could see my own eyes, still open, watching the canopy slowly darken as shock took me under. Could see what came after. The sounds of something large moving through the trees toward my body. The feeling of being dragged, dirt filling my mouth. Being pulled deeper, always deeper, into parts of the forest that have never seen sunlight. These weren't thoughts. They were previews. I should have turned back. Should have. But the path had narrowed, and I realized with creeping horror that I couldn't remember when I'd last seen a space wide enough to turn around. The forest had closed behind me like a fist. Forward was the only option now. Forward into darker woods, where the trees grew so close their roots tangled across the path like tripwires, where the canopy choked out the sky completely, where my headlights seemed to die after only a few feet, swallowed by darkness that felt solid. And then I saw the first marker. A small cairn of stones, stacked impossibly high and thin. No way it should be standing. Beside it, symbols carved into a tree trunk. Not letters, not any language I knew, but shapes that hurt to look at. Geometries that my eyes kept sliding off of, refusing to process. I've since learned that the human brain does this when confronted with patterns that shouldn't exist. It protects itself through selective blindness. But in that moment, all I knew was that something had built that cairn. Something had carved those symbols. And it had done so recently. The exposed wood was still white with sap. I passed 3 more markers before reaching the grove. Each one different. Each one impossible. The last was the worst. A circle of small animal skulls, each one facing inward, positioned on sharpened sticks. Squirrels, rabbits, a fox, but arranged with such precision, such care. And in the center of the circle, burned into the ground, a human handprint. Too large, fingers too long, but unmistakably a hand. The grove, when I reached it, was exactly as I remembered. The same ancient trees, roots breaking through earth, the same clearing where mushrooms grew. But wrong. All wrong. Because this time the trees had markings. Fresh claw marks starting about 7 feet up and dragging down to the roots. Not scratches, furrows. Whatever made them had incredible strength. Had marked every single tree in the grove, methodically, deliberately. A border, a warning, a claim. The mushrooms were there, growing in impossible abundance, covering every surface, stumps, fallen logs, even climbing the marked trees. More than I'd ever seen. A fortune in honey mushrooms, perfect specimens, calling to me. I killed the engine. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was full of attention, full of waiting, full of the sensation of being observed by something that had been expecting me, that had been patient. The forest exhaled, and I swear to you, I felt breath on the back of my neck. Warm, rotten, close. I turned. Nothing there. But the grass behind my motorcycle was pressed down, like something had been standing right behind me and stepped aside at the last moment. Playing. My hands shook as I dismounted. The ground squelched underfoot. Too wet for a dry season, too soft, and when I looked down I saw why. The earth was mixed with something else. Dark patches, organic, decomposing. Fur and other things. The mushrooms weren't growing from old logs. They were growing from mass graves. I knelt by the first cluster anyway, reached out. The mushrooms were warm, pulsing. I could feel them breathing under my fingers, synchronizing with my heartbeat. And the smell, God, the smell wasn't earth. It was sweet decay, yes, but also familiar, like something I should recognize but couldn't place. My knife touched the first stem and it recoiled, actually moved away from the blade. The cap turned toward me, toward my face, and I saw what I'd been refusing to see. Those aren't gills underneath. Those are teeth. Tiny, translucent, but unmistakably teeth. And they were moving. The mushrooms weren't growing here. They were feeding here. I stumbled backward, and that's when I heard it. Not a sound, but the absence of one. Every insect, every distant bird, every rustle of wind gone. Silenced. The way small prey freezes when a predator approaches. The forest wasn't empty. It was hiding. From what? The answer came from between the trees. Not walking. Flowing. Movement that was wrong. Too smooth for legs, too fast for crawling. A shape that my eyes couldn't quite fix on, like it existed slightly out of phase with reality. But I caught impressions. Massive, 8 feet tall or more, hunched but not from age, from anatomy that bent in too many places. The shoulders were broader than any bear's. The arms hung down past where knees should be, and where hands should be were bundles of fingers. Too many fingers, each one independently moving, grasping at air. But the head, oh God, the head. It was skull-like, elongated, jaw hanging open too wide, and inside, I could see down its throat, could see things moving in there, pale shapes, writhing. And the eyes, they were in the wrong places, not facing forward like a predator's should. Instead, they ringed the skull, 5 or 6 of them, covering every angle. No blind spots. You could see everything simultaneously. And all those eyes, every single one, locked onto me. We stood frozen. It made a sound, not a growl, not a roar. A whisper. My name. It whispered my name in a voice that scraped like bones on stone. How did it know my name? Then it smiled. The jaw distended further, and I saw that the inside of its mouth was lined not with one row of teeth but with spirals of them, going back and back into darkness. And it smiled wider and wider still, the skin stretching to translucence, until its entire head was nothing but grin and eyes and that darkness behind the teeth that seemed to go on forever. It moved. I ran. But here's what they never tell you about being prey. You don't run in a straight line. Your body knows better than your mind. I zigzagged between trees, some animal instinct taking over, and it saved my life because the thing behind me, it was fast. So fast. I heard trees splintering as it came through, not around, through, with shrieking, and it was laughing. A gurgling, wet sound that came from somewhere deep in its body. I fell. Root caught my boot and I went down hard, tasted blood, and rolled over to see it standing above me. This close, I could see that its skin wasn't skin but something else. Hundreds of tiny mouths opening and closing, tasting the air, tasting my fear. One of those 2 long arms reached down, and the fingers, 6 on each hand, each one ending in something sharp and black, wrapped around my throat. It lifted me, My feet kicked at nothing. Those multiple eyes studied me, and I saw intelligence there. Not animal cunning. Human-level intelligence. Maybe greater. It was thinking, deciding, and in that moment, hanging there, feeling those tiny mouths on its skin sampling me, I understood. This thing had been human once. Or humans had been this thing once. We were looking at each other across evolutionary time, across some divergence that happened when one branch of humanity went into the forests and never came out. Adapted, changed, became something that could survive in the deep woods where light never reaches. And it recognized me, saw in me what it used to be, what it might still remember being. Its jaw opened. That throat tunnel yawned before me. I could see peristalsis, rhythmic contractions pulling downward. I was going to be swallowed. Slowly, consciously. It wanted me to experience every moment. The whistle. My hand found it. Blew. The sound in that silent forest was like reality tearing. The creature dropped me, all its eyes squeezing shut, head thrashing. Not from pain, from confusion. The sound was too human, too artificial. It didn't belong here, and in this place where wrongness thrived, normal human sound was the aberration. I ran. Found the motorcycle. Key in. Turn. Nothing. Turn. Sputter. The creature was recovering, eyes reopening one by one, focusing. Turn. Turn. The engine caught, and I throttled it so hard the front wheel lifted. Shot forward. Felt something grab the back of my jacket. Felt myself being pulled backward off the bike. But the momentum was too much. The fabric tore. I was free. In the mirror I watched it, standing in the clearing. Not chasing, just watching me go with all those eyes. And I swear it raised one hand. Waved. Slowly. Deliberately. Like, see you next time. Because there will be a next time. That's what I understand now. This wasn't an attack. It was an introduction. A marking. I've been claimed by the forest. Tagged as future food. It let me go because prey tastes better when it's been given time to think about what's coming. When fear has had time to tenderize the meat. I made it to pavement. Made it to the gas station. Looked in the mirror and screamed because for just a moment, just one terrible moment, my reflection had too many eyes. Blinked and I was normal again. But I saw it. And I keep seeing it. In windows. In puddles. In the black screen of my phone when it's turned off. Too many eyes. Looking back at me from inside my own face. The jacket I tore free from, I found it when I got home. Hanging in my closet. Impossible because it should still be in the forest. Clutched in those two long fingers. But there it is. And on the back, written in something dark and crusted. Coordinates. GPS coordinates. I looked them up. They mark a spot deep in the forest. Deeper than I went. Deeper than I've ever been. And tomorrow I know I'm going to go there. Not because I want to. Because I have to. Because whatever that thing did to me when it held me, when those tiny mouths on its skin tasted me, it planted something. Compulsion. A call. I can feel it pulling at me even now. A fishhook in my brain. Reeling me back. The mushrooms were bait. I was bait. And the real hunt is only beginning. If you're reading this and I haven't posted again, you'll know where I went. You'll know what got me. And if you're smart, you'll never, ever go looking for me. Because the forest doesn't just take. Transforms. It adds to itself. And the thing I saw might not have always been a thing. It might have once been someone exactly like me who went into the woods looking for mushrooms. The worst part? I'm starting to be okay with that. The pull is strong. And it's bringing with it a strange peace. An acceptance. Maybe even anticipation. The forest promises things. Whispers them in my dreams. Promises of finally understanding. Of becoming part of something vast and old and patient. Of never being alone again. I can feel myself changing already. My joints ache in new places. My peripheral vision is expanding. And yesterday, I caught myself standing in my backyard for 4 hours without moving. Without blinking. Just watching. Waiting. For what, I don't know yet. But I will. The forest teaches all its children eventually. See you in the trees.